I'll have to get back to you later about Jurassic Park 4. Boom.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times people predicted the future.
If you get into that car at all, it's now Thursday, whatever the date was, 10 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock at night next Thursday you'll be dead.
For this list, we'll be looking at instances where people foresaw future events that ultimately became a reality. We'll be excluding predictions from The Simpsons, as the fortune-telling series already has a list of its own. We also won't be including ambiguous predictions, as those are open to interpretation. Yes, we're looking at you, Nostradamus. What future predictions of yours do you wish would come true? Communicate them to us through a crystal ball in the comments below. Number 10. Ronald Reagan's Presidency and the Fall of the Berlin Wall. Dan Rowan and Dick Martin.
Can you see Ronald Reagan as president?
No, all I've seen him on is Death Valley Days.
Dan Rowan and Dick Martin's hugely successful sketch comedy show Laugh-In was notable for its political commentary and racy humor.
And now, with the news of the future 20 years from now, here's Dan.
The show featured a recurring segment called News of the Future, where the comedians often made ridiculous predictions about the future to mock current political events. During one of those segments in 1969, Rowan predicted that the Berlin Wall would fall 20 years later and that Ronald Reagan would be POTUS when it did.
Berlin 20 years from now, 1989. There was dancing in the streets today.
At the time, Reagan was still the relatively new governor of California, and Rowan even pauses to laugh at the idea for a moment. Of course, Reagan went on to win the presidency, and the Berlin Wall fell in the exact years that they had predicted. How fortuitous. Number 9. The start and end of the Great Depression, Edgar Cayce. Also known as the Sleeping Prophet, Edgar Cayce was an American psychic that allegedly foretold future events while asleep in a hypnotic trance.
He could put himself to sleep here in Virginia Beach, tune in to an individual virtually anywhere in the world, diagnose what was wrong with that person, how they had gotten ill to begin with.
Although not all of his predictions came to pass, quite a number of them did. Most notably, his 1924 prediction that the stock market would crash 5 years later and trigger the Great Depression. Cayce spent the next few years teaching people how to prepare for the impending doom, but his warnings fell on deaf ears. When the market did in fact crash in 1929, those deaf ears turned to empty bank accounts. Not only did Cayce foresee the start of the Depression, but he also predicted its end would begin in the spring of 1933, which eventually happened. Number 8. His own death, Mark Twain. A key figure in the emergence of American literature, Mark Twain was born on November 30th, 1835, just 2 weeks after Halley's Comet passed by Earth. Based on the comet's appearance, the famed writer made an eerie prediction about his death that eventually came true.
It'll be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't meet up with that comet.
Speaking to Albert Payne, his biographer, just a year before his death, Twain is quoted as saying, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it." True to his words, the author died of a heart attack on April 21st, 1910. Just 1 day after the comet came closest to Earth. Number 7. The Blair Witch Project and the found footage horror genre, Bruce Willis. The use of the found footage horror technique has existed for at least 4 decades, with its origins dating back to the 1980 cult horror film Cannibal Holocaust.
This area is under the domination of 2 cannibal tribes. They are so fierce, they're feared by all of the tribes in the area.
This technique was largely popularized decades later by the hit movie The Blair Witch Project. While it was released in 1999, the movie's success was predicted by Bruce Willis on the set of Pulp Fiction 6 years earlier.
Someday in the next 5 years, someone's going to take one of these and make a feature film.
Oh, I know! In a behind-the-scenes clip shot by director Quentin Tarantino, Willis remarked that in the next 5 years, a group of young people would make a successful feature film with inexpensive handheld cameras.
Some kid, some 17-year-old kid's going to make this killer, drop-dead, poorly lit video movie that is going to be the hippest fucking thing, and then there's going to be 100 of them after that.
Even stranger, the actor predicted the film's budget to be $60,000, which turned out to be the original budget of the Blair Witch Project. Number 6. The Atomic Bomb, H.G. Wells. In his 1914 science fiction novel, The World Set Free, prolific English writer H.G. Wells first detailed the possibility of creating a powerful bomb from radioactive elements. In the book, Wells describes hand grenades made from uranium being dropped from planes and causing a level of devastation that would recur in real life decades later. Although scientists had already begun to discover the potentially destructive effects of radioactive elements, Wells's book was published at least 30 years before the first atomic bomb was actually created. As he was friends with a number of prominent world leaders and scientists, we can only wonder if his fictional bomb inspired the creation of those dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Number 5. James Dean's death, Alec Guinness.
And some strange thing came over me, some almost different voice. And I said, look, I won't join your table unless you want me to, but I must say something. Please do not get into that car.
Sometimes a chance encounter can be life-changing in the greatest way possible. Other times, it could be the moment you learn about your own demise. At least that was the case for Rebel Without a Cause star James Dean. After meeting Alec Guinness outside a Los Angeles restaurant in 1955, Dean showed off his new Porsche Spyder to the future Oscar-winning actor, bragging about the great speeds it could reach.
How fast can you drive in this? He said, oh, I can do 150 in it. And I said, have you driven it? He said, no, I've never been in it.
According to Guinness, he warned Dean not to get into the car or else he'd be dead within the week.
And I said, if you get into that car at all, it's now Thursday, whatever the date was, 10 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock at night, next Thursday, you'll be dead.
Dean initially laughed off the comment, but just like Guinness predicted, he was involved in a ghastly accident the next Friday that claimed his life at the very young age of 24. Number 4. The Sinking of the Titanic, Morgan Robertson. Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan, is an 1898 novella written by American author Morgan Robertson that details the sinking of an enormous fictional ship called the SS Titan, which was deemed unsinkable. 14 years later, the RMS Titanic, an equally enormous, unsinkable British ship, would meet its own equally ill-fated end. The details in Robertson's story and that of the real-life sinking are eerily similar.
On the port! On the port!
Not only was the unsinkable ship in Futility called the Titan, it also had a shortage of lifeboats and hit an iceberg on an April night in the North Atlantic. All similarities shared with the Titanic.
Please, I need more women and children, please.
Although undoubtedly creepy, Robertson's prediction could be attributed to his experience as a seaman and a maritime writer. Number 3. Greenhouse Effect, Alexander Graham Bell. Although he's well known for his brilliant inventions, Alexander Graham Bell not only created solutions to the immediate problems of his time, but he also foresaw future ones. In a 1917 article written for National Geographic magazine, the famed inventor went against other scientists of the era by predicting that our uncontrolled use of fossil fuels would turn the Earth into a hothouse. Bell questioned the continued use of coal and oil, as they both have a limited supply, and even proffered solutions in the form of solar power and alcohol as alternative energy sources. While the world has gone on to use alcohol as a solution for quite different problems, we can't deny just how spot on Bell's predictions were. Number 2. The Moon Landing, Jules Verne.
Altitude 4200. Houston, you're a go for landing, over.
Before we eventually walked on the moon, there had been several predictions about humans landing on the lunar surface, but none came as close to that of French novelist Jules Verne. In his 1865 novel, From the Earth to the Moon, Verne wrote about man's first voyage to the celestial body, and for an author in the mid-19th century, he was surprisingly accurate. Verne's fictional mission saw a 3-man crew launching to the moon from Florida and experiencing weightlessness as they left Earth's atmosphere.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
These details featured a great deal of similarity to the real-life Apollo 11 mission that occurred more than a century later, proving just how shrewd Verne was as a storyteller.
100 years ago, Jules Verne wrote a book about a voyage to the moon.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. The iPad and e-newspapers, Arthur C. Clarke. Clark's visions of tablet-like devices providing the news appear in the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. How's everything going?
Marvelous. We have no complaints.
The 2013 Golden Globe winners. Elena Shepard. An editor for a culture website, Shepard predicted all winners that year with 100% accuracy.
Golden Globe goes to Jennifer Lawrence, Silver Lining Playbook.
Cell phones. Nikola Tesla. The famed inventor suggested that individuals would one day carry around their own communication devices.
A man will be able to carry one in his vest pocket, he said. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, to witness and hear events, the inauguration of a president, the playing of a World Series game, or the terror of a battle.
The Chicago Cubs winning the World Series. Michael Lee. A diehard Cubs fan, Lee predicted their 2016 World Series win in his 1993 high school yearbook. World War II. Ferdinand Foch. The French general predicted the start of the Second World War and Germany's involvement in it in 1918. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. The Internet. Arthur C. Clarke. British science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke was well known for co-writing the screenplay to the classic film 2001: A Space Odyssey and for his technological predictions, many of which came to pass. One of his most notable forecasts was given in a BBC documentary in 1964, where the acclaimed writer painted a picture of a medium that would connect everyone around the world without the need for physical contact.
These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other, wherever we may be.
Sound familiar, anyone?
It will be possible in that age, perhaps only 50 years from now, for a man to conduct his business from Tahiti or Bali just as well as he could from London.
He also accurately predicted the advent of remote work, with people rendering their services and skills over such a medium.
Almost any executive skill, any administrative skill, even any physical skill could be made independent of distance.
Clarke's wildly innovative sci-fi writings and incredible foresight earned him the befitting nickname Prophet of the Space Age.
Ah, yes. Well, thank you, Arthur C. Clarke.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.